Peace. Infinite Waters diving deep once again. Shout out to all of you wonderful deep divers. We have a very, very special guest. He needs no introduction. Founder, CEO of Forbidden Knowledge, the wonderful Billy Carson. It's so wonderful to have you here, brother. Thanks so much for joining.
Thank you, man. It's an honor to be here. And anytime you call me, man, I'm always available for you.
Yes, I definitely appreciate that. And, since the last time we talked, so much has been happening. How have you been? How is Fort Lauderdale and everything in Florida for you? And
yeah, everything's phenomenal, man. We're planning our third annual Forbidden Conscious Awards right now. You're one of the nominees as well for the second year in a row, which is phenomenal. Hopefully we can get you down there this year. We'd love to have you in the house. And, everything's good, man. We're just grinding out here, making history, changing the world, predicting future events, predicting that a lot of these conspiracies have come to fruition and are now proven to be real. And of course, also weathering the attacks that come with this level of information and I guess if you want to call it internet fame, which, like I told you earlier off camera, sometimes people will try to give you their best blow, but forbidden knowledge is standing strong. And forbidden knowledge isn't just me. See, people think that forbidden knowledge is Billy Carson. That's where they messed up. Forbidden knowledge is an ideology. It's an understanding. It's a community. So you knock one down, another one pops right back up. There's millions of us, over 10 million followers we have now across all the platforms combined. And I'm sure there's some crossover, so maybe 7 million. Still a lot of people to contend with, and we're not going anywhere.
Right. Well, once again, thanks so much for taking time out of your busy schedule, because I know you're doing a lot. But since the last time we spoke, Egypt is in the news, right? Egypt is making headlines. They're talking about an underground city, and this is really sending shockwaves through the whole world.
Oh yeah. Listen, this is something that I've been talking about for over a decade. When I started talking about the pyramid, the Giza pyramids, the Great Pyramid, the Khafre Pyramid, just the plateau itself, and even the pyramids at Saqqara. And I have been talking about these underground shafts and underground areas that are wide open that hold this area called the Halls of Amenti, according to the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, which some people recently that attacked tried to say, oh, this just a guy sat down in 1923 and made up a sci-fi movie in his head. Not quite. You can't make this kind of stuff up. And for the fact that in my book that I wrote 5 years ago, Compendium of the Emerald Tablets, which has been a bestseller on Amazon for over 5 years now, maybe five and a half years total time, on page 34, not only do I talk about this underground vast opening and what it may hold, I have a rendering of what it would look like based on the account of Thoth in the Emerald Tablets. And guess what? The columns are there. They go deep beneath the earth. And this area is so vast and so wide that if you took it and dug it out and put the Burj Khalifa next to it, the tallest building in the world in Dubai, it's the same height. It's actually slightly taller than the Burj Khalifa if you go all the way to the tip of the pyramid. So if you go from the tip of the pyramid down to the deepest part of this underground built, I don't know what it is, if you want to call it this technology, this underground shaft or these columns that go deep 2,000 kilometers, this thing is just a little taller than the Burj Khalifa. We're talking about something that's mesmerizing here. And people have tried to come out and debunk it immediately without even looking at the research data. So let's debunk the debunkers right from the beginning. A lot of critics came out. You already know what they're going to do. They're going to come out and talk about that the SAR scans can't penetrate that deep into the earth. Well, they're thinking about an old version of the SAR scan, right? They're thinking about that version. They're saying that you can't penetrate that deep. So Zahi Hawass, the overseer and the keeper of the knowledge, the blocker or the opposition of knowledge coming out of Egypt for many, many decades, immediately makes a statement without looking at any of the data that, oh, this can't be real. And then another scientist also came out and tried to say that as well, who is totally on the other side of the world, never looked at the data as well, but they're all part of the same inner circle. They're trying to keep this kind of knowledge hidden. So I wanted to get that out of the way in the beginning. And why are we going to debunk it? Okay. Unlike ground penetrating radar, this scientist named Biondi, His SAR technology employs X-band microwaves at 10 gigahertz with a 3 centimeter wavelength. This is coming from a satellite, okay? This is coming from a satellite in space. It penetrates the ground less than 30 centimeters, but instead of directly scanning the underground like the other version of SAR, it detects subtle surface vibrations that create minute shivers triggered by the resonance of this band. So it can actually penetrate even deeper because it's picking up the vibrations. The vibrations rise back up towards the beam, send that information back to the CPU or the processor on the satellite, and then it's able to extrapolate the empty space from the solid space and to create a rendering of what's under the ground. And by this revolutionary method, they were able to find that these vibrations are similar to seismic waves and they generate a Doppler effect. And this is why this SAR technology is revolutionary, and everyone is going to start using it on all these ancient sites very, very soon, because this version or this method of utilizing SAR technology allows you to see deep, deep, deep beneath many layers of solid stone, and you can get a rendering. Now you don't have to dig holes, meters wide to the south, east, north, or west, and then try to go down and dig a tunnel. You can, and then hope you can find what's there, so you don't destroy the structure. You can simply use a satellite with this specific 10 gigahertz, 3 centimeter wide band technology, and you can create this amazing imagery, which we've seen going viral on the internet.
Okay, that's phenomenal. So let's go back. So for a lot of people who don't know, this story that broke, this scientist coming out from Italy saying that there's a vast underground city. And I actually made a video when this story first broke and it was going viral. News stations picked it up. I want to ask you, what was your first reaction when this story broke out? Were you surprised? Were you like, oh my gosh, this is what I've been saying with Donny Arcade? Because I actually listened to your song afterwards. I'm like, oh my gosh, he called it years ago. How did you know?
You wrote that song in 2016.
Right.
For people who, I'm also a music producer. I wrote books about it, right? This book's 5.5 years old almost, the Compendium of the Emerald Tablets. And when I saw it, I was like, yeah, I mean, I hate to say I told you so, but I told you so. This is one of those, another confirmation moment for forbidden knowledge. I've had so many confirmation moments over the years. One of the very first talking about chemtrails, one of the very first talking about geoengineering contracts and what the effect of them is, and that countries and states will start banning them, which has happened. One of the very first to talk about all these other things that have gone on, and they just keep coming up to be true. And this is just another one that happens to be true. And the evidence is that even in the book, I depict a rendering of these underground columns going deep beneath the earth, underneath Giza, coming from underneath the pyramids, and creating this vast underground area that seems to potentially even go on for miles in different directions.
So what do you know, just playing the devil's advocate, because people want to know who these scientists are. You know, I know they're credible scientists, but we're in a world right now of fact checkers. So from your own research and everything, who are these scientists coming out with these bold claims?
Yeah, well, the name of the scientists are a research team. So it's a team, not just one. It's Corrado Malanga, Corrado, Malanga, Malanga, Armando May, that's Armando and then Filippo Biondi, okay, which, you know, Biondi is his last name if you look that up, and Nicole Ciccolo, Ciccolo, and they are basically the ones that came up with this research technology. Now, this group, I think they're out of Italy or France, but they have access to this satellite, which they rigged this technology on. And that's why they didn't have to get any permission from Egypt to do this, because they were doing it from space and nobody can stop that. So it's crazy. And they were able to scan even see the Balanzi chamber in the Khafre pyramid. So this technology is incredible. These scientists are real scientists and researchers and archaeologists that anyone can Google those names and pull up all the science data and the peer-reviewed information on their findings and previous findings in the past. This isn't the first time they've had discoveries.
So I've been to Egypt twice. You've been to Egypt. You've done tours there. The pyramids are fascinating. 2.3 million blocks of stone. We still can't build it today. A lot of people want to know why now, because there have been so many people who have gone to Egypt. Why is this coming out at this specific time in 2025, why is this claim coming out that there's an underground city? Is there significance? Have they been holding this back, or are they just gathering all the research just to unleash it on the whole public?
Mm-hmm. Well, great question. A lot of the people on the inside circle, like Zahi Hawass and a few others, have been holding this information back from the general public for a very, very long time. They have known that these areas underneath exist, and they haven't done proper scans to create the renderings that we have now. But they know that there's tunnels that lead from the Sphinx all the way out to the ziggurat of Ur in Iraq, as well as corresponding tunnels that lead from Giza Plateau all the way out to Iraq and into Mesopotamia as well, deep underground. They know all about this stuff. I've been in the underground. They're dried out. I guess what the geological name for them would be. This is where the Nile used to run, and the Nile now is dried out from that area. It moved as it meandered off, and so it leaves these dry openings underneath the pyramids. And I've been in those as well. I forget the technical geological name for those, but there's so much going on underneath. And I've descended 65 meters beneath the Great Pyramid in something called the subterranean shaft. And only less than 0.1% of the world has ever even known about it. And less than 1% of them have ever been inside of it. And I'm one of the people to be inside of that amazing shaft. So there's so much going on. They know about this stuff, but they keep it hidden from us, or have kept it hidden from us, because it breaks down mainstream narratives, and somebody's paying these people to do this. Now, why is it coming out now? This is the really big question. Well, it has been foretold that this is the era and this is the time, this age of Aquarius, which just began in 2025. We are now in the age of Aquarius, the age of enlightenment. The age of esoteric wisdom has come forward. So people like yourself, Ralph, and myself, we have been way ahead of the game in the curve, leading humanity back into this new age where we're going to become awakened, because we're in the age of information, but information like no other. Not just information that's toxic, but information that's enlightening, information that will wake up humanity, information that will take us back in time to rediscover who we truly are, and to begin to rip away this amnesia that humanity has. So once we discover who we are, what we did, where we came from, and the truth about the ancient past, we can then merge together, organize, and build a much better future for humanity on this planet. And that's where we're going.
Beautiful, beautiful. And shout out to everyone in the chat. This is a live show, Deep Divers, because we had to do it live for you. Now, anytime a story like this breaks out, I'm always checking the mainstream media. Are they reporting? Is BBC, CNN, New York Post, Daily Mail? So I saw Daily Mail reporting it, New York Post reporting it, and I feel it's going to be reported by the BBC soon. What are the implications if there is a vast underground city, in your opinion, in your knowledge? What are the implications of this finding? Because you have experts coming out saying that actually this is not true. So you have scientists against scientists. But what are the implications for archaeology? Because from my own research, the scientists who discovered through this radar technology there's an underground city are saying that this would mean that the pyramids are 38,000 years old. You see, we're told by modern archaeology the pyramids are only 4,500 years old. So what are the implications for knowing that the pyramids may be 38,000 years old? 38,000 years old.
Exactly. And that matches up perfectly with my book, Compendium of the Emerald Tablets. In this book I wrote 5.5 years ago, I literally say that the pyramids were built between 36 to 38,000 years ago by Thoth, the Atlantean priest king, who ruled over the land of ancient Kemet long before it was called Egypt, for 16,000 years himself. But he claims to have built the Great Pyramid in his own text, in his own writing. He says, "Builded I the Great Pyramid, patterned after Earth's force, so that it too might remain through the ages." And that was about 36 to 38,000 years ago. The implications of this is mind-boggling, because everything will need to be rewritten. The mainstream false fake news narrative will have to be destroyed and burnt, as all the books on archaeology around the world and in universities will have to be rewritten. And the reason why scientists are going head to head on this is because you have real scientists that want to embrace true reality, and then you have the fake scientists that are taking money for their projects and their grant money from different private organizations, and they don't want to lose their funding, and they don't want to be ostracized from the scientific community by their own peers. So they go with the false narrative. So you have this battle against good versus evil, false versus real, and the implications of this are mind-blowing because, number one, the feat of just this discovery, technologically and engineering-wise, it destroys the feat of building the Great Pyramid. The Great Pyramid is like child's play compared to what they've discovered. I mean, it's an absolute joke. No wonder why they built the Great Pyramid. It was easy. It was a child's play. It was like a toy, like putting together Legos. This thing is so complex, so intricate, and to be able to dig that much out of the ground or whatever technology they use to excavate and to build this structure down there today in 2025 will be a mind-boggling, resource-sucking engineering feat that would take the top engineers in the world to figure out, first of all, the budget for it would have to be probably in the hundreds of millions or billions of dollars, and it would take years to complete. So now we're trying to say that people with chicken bones and copper chisels that were slaves built this. So now this is the implication. It doesn't line up anymore. All of a sudden, slaves can't be the builders of the pyramid because this requires advanced engineering, advanced tooling, advanced technology. It requires foreknowledge, meaning they have to have advanced knowledge on how to construct something like this because you can't pool the resources of your entire civilization to build something on a hope and a whim and a prayer that it might actually work. They knew ahead of time that this style of building, this technique, and this structure was going to be functional and it would work perfectly fine before they made the first dig, before they shoveled the first piece of sand out of that area. So what we're talking about is an advanced race of people with advanced knowledge, advanced technology, advanced engineering, calculus, geometry, levels of mathematics. Obviously astrophysics because of star alignments and everything else. These weren't slaves. Slaves did not build the pyramid. Slaves are left illiterate. They're discouraged from learning anything. They damn sure aren't going to learn these advanced techniques. They're not going to give them these advanced tools to build this structure. They're not going to have all the wisdom and knowledge on how to build something like this, because if they had the level of knowledge to build this structure, then guess what? They wouldn't have been slaves in the first place because they would not allow themselves to become enslaved. So we're talking about people did build this, but the knowledge came from another group of people that had a super high advanced level of knowledge, and they trained specific hand-picked people to construct this as they were the worker bees that did the work, but under the tutelage of a master architect with extreme advanced knowledge and wisdom. They don't want that to get out to the general public because it would blow all narrative. It would destroy religion. It would destroy the mainstream archaeological point of view of this 4,000-year trash that they've been putting out for so long. And it would rewire everyone's brain in the world into believing and understanding that this version of human being, us, we're not the end-all be-all. We're not the most technologically advanced people. We are the new kids on the block. And everything that we build now, everything that we do now technologically is just a rediscovery of what already existed. We haven't even caught up to them yet.
Right. So we see a theme of war throughout humanity, whether it's Israel, Palestine, Russia, Ukraine, Graham Hancock, Zahi Hawass, right? So before Infinite Waters, I actually had a radio show and I interviewed Dr. Carmen Bolter, who had a Pyramid Code, the documentary series, and also John Anthony West, who talked about magical Egypt. So, he talked about how there was weathering on the Sphinx. And this is what really woke up blew my mind back in 2009. And he was talking to me about how there was weathering on the Sphinx. So it's a lot older than, modern archaeology claims, right? So there's a battle happening with archaeology, with the facts, between the facts and the fiction. So you have people like Zahi Hawass, former person in charge of tourism and antiquity in Egypt, he actually did a video with Mr. Beast, right? I watched it, and in the video, he's like, I know everything about the pyramids. It was 4,500 years old. And, you know, he took Mr. B through the pyramids. And I'm like, okay, this is a guy who thinks he knows everything. Do you feel that he truly believes this? Or do you feel that he knows actually it's a lot older than he thinks?
Zahi Hawass is one of the biggest liars in archaeology and antiquities to date. He not only does he know, he has stolen many people's discoveries. People that I personally know, he's stolen their discoveries. They'll go discover something in Egypt, and then he'll tell them, no, and he'll make a press release about it and try to, quote unquote, debunk it like he tried to do with this. And then he'll wait a couple of years, and then he'll be the discoverer of this open shaft or of this new tunnel or whatever it is to take and put his name on it. And they get paid from sponsors and grants for it. So he's not only is he a charlatan, but he's also a thief. He's a thief that will rob your discoveries and then monetize them. So he knows a lot more about the pyramids, but he's being paid to go with this mainstream narrative and keep it in place and keep it in check. Even though he got caught, I think he got caught stealing money, and then she actually got fired from his original job with Egypt, and then somehow worked his way back in again like a snake, and he's back in there again, still spewing a bunch of lies and fake news. He told Mr. Beast that there was nothing underneath the Sphinx. I mean, come on, guys.
Right.
I've down there before.
So I've been to Egypt twice, you know, and I went when I was in my early 20s, and I stayed with a family there. And I always love to ask questions, right? So this is the Egyptians, the modern day Egyptians. And I asked them, who do you think built the pyramids? Okay. And, you know, the husband was like, we did. You know, our ancestors built them, right? That's what he believed, right? So
look at his house.
So a lot of people, a lot of Egyptians, right, they believe that they built the pyramids. Their ancestors built the pyramids, right? But when you start to dive deeper, we now know that actually the pyramids can't be built today. Right. Because they say it took 20 years to build a pyramid. But for them to build the Great Pyramid, that would mean laying down one block every 3 minutes. It's impossible. So who do you believe built the pyramids? Because there's a whole side that say actually Africans built the pyramids from the Nile River going back to Sudan, because there you have the early pyramids, Kush and all of that. And then they came, you know, it all started from that Sudan area, Ethiopia. Then they moved further towards Egypt. But who do you feel constructed these pyramids, and what do you think the reason why they were built? Because you have people like Christopher Dunn saying they were energy generators. Then you got some people saying UFOs, aliens built them. You got some people say Africans built them. You got some people saying, hey, it's a mystery, right? So from your own research, who are the pyramid builders, and how were they able to construct this massive seventh wonder of the world that millions of people go and visit every single day?
Yeah, it's a great question. Okay. And it's a multifaceted answer. There can't be one answer for this. If somebody gives one answer, that they have no idea what the hell they're talking about. Okay. It's a multifaceted answer. First, let's talk about the pyramids at Giza. All right. The Great Pyramid specifically. We do have a writing, an account of one of the most revered gods in the history of Egypt, saying that he built the pyramid in his own writing. Okay. So we have that. We have now more evidence that the pyramid structures there at Giza may be far older than has been reported. If you look at the Great Pyramid like this, over 2 million blocks of stone, 2.3 million blocks of stone, right? Each stone is individually cut for the exact location that it sits in, because you have a puzzle that locks together. The pyramid is not built like a Lego block set, which you see these demonstrations on Instagram and YouTube. Some guy stacks up these bricks. That's not even close to what the pyramid is. Imagine you got 2.3 million stones, and each one is individually cut for the specific location it's in. It has to interlock with no mortar to build this massive structure. And then you have to have 65 to almost 100 meters beneath the bedrock structures, substructures, and then you have that we know about. And then you have to have these shafts that are cut through the solid stone in perfect angles to lead out into the upper area, with no evidence of any debris laying around from this cut. So what we're talking about here is advanced knowledge. We're talking about foreknowledge. Again, You can't pool the resources of your civilization to build a structure like this unless you know that you can successfully complete it and that it had an actual function that was going to profit this civilization. But these people weren't stupid. So who built the Great Pyramid, for example? In my opinion, based on my own research, the Great Pyramid lines up with the Thoth writing from the Emerald Tablets that says he built the Great Pyramid about 36 to 38,000 years ago with the time frame. And the reason why, if you look at the Great Pyramid measurements, okay? Now, the location of the pyramid first. Let's talk about the location. It's directly located in the center of land mass on Earth. Not the center of the Earth, the center of land mass. Today, if you said, Billy, you knew that I had a developing company, and you said to me, hey, Billy, I want to hire your developer company. I want you to give me the center of land mass and build me a structure on top of it. I would go, okay, no problem. I would take the contract, but the first thing I got to do now is I got to contact an aerospace company that has a satellite in orbit. And I have to ask them to do a scan in a polar orbit. In other words, pole to pole, not around the equator, pole to pole. And as the Earth spins on its axis, I need to scan swaths of data so I can calculate all the areas of landmass and then calculate and pinpoint the exact center of landmass on the planet itself. That requires a polar orbiting satellite. That's number one. If you had to do it today, only way we can do it, no other way. Second thing, the measurements of the Great Pyramid give out specific astronomical information. When you take the base and do some very simple mathematics, you can get the total amount of days in a year. You can get the tropical year and the sidereal year. When you look at the angle of the Grand Gallery leading up to the King's Chamber and take those measurements, you can get the distance from the Earth to the sun, the distance from the Earth to the moon, the speed of the Earth on its own axis, and the speed of the Earth around the sun. With more measurements within the Great Pyramid, you can even get the speed of the sun around the Milky Way galaxy, and then you can get the speed of the Milky Way galaxy around the local cluster of galaxies. So this is extreme astronomical data that, again, requires satellites, something in space that can see all these astronomical events and make super intricate calculations, and then incorporate that data into the structure itself. More advanced foreknowledge, right? Then you build it on top of an aquifer, okay? That's what I wanted to say earlier. The name was tubes. I stood inside of the dry tubes underneath the Great Pyramid before, where the Nile used to flow. That used to be full of running water. When you put running water underneath magnetized crystal granite, you create physiostatic electricity. Those ions move up into the Grand Gallery. There were resonating rods there, but they've been removed because you can see the slots where they were, but the technology was taken out. It would be stepped up into the King's Chamber. In the King's Chamber, some level of fusion actually used to happen and shoot a beam of energy through the apex, and then that gold crown cap used to transmit that wireless energy around the area. If you had a JED and a cable, you can connect things to it like a loom, a sewing loom, gold electroplating device, or even light bulbs, which we know they use all of these in Egypt for absolute fact. And the depictions of them and the actual artifacts of the gold-plated devices, the gold-plated trinkets are all around and they're in the museum. So they had electricity. Electro-gold-plated technology existed. They had electricity. So now you say, okay, well, damn, who did it? You have Thoth saying he did it, but Thoth is not going to lift a block. He's not going to move one brick. He's not going to dig a hole. That's like asking the master architect to go to work on the site. So the master architect then has a foreman and an engineer. So he coordinates with the foreman and engineer. These are two other advanced beings that have superiorly advanced knowledge. Those guys recruit, they handpick a crew. These are the workers. Those are human beings. And if you're talking about that time frame, you're talking about pre-dynastic, we're talking about ancient Kemet, we're talking about black people, okay? Now, these black people that were handpicked, they were given the knowledge and wisdom on what to do to help build this structure because the labor wasn't going to be done by these other guys. All right, so they actually took part in the actual physical construction process.
Right. So, sorry to cut your wisdom, but this vast underground city, which is making headlines right now, that's also a part of the pyramid, right? In terms of they work together. So, what is that city? Why was it built? Why is it under the pyramids? Why is it under and not kind of seen above the pyramids? Yeah. So why was there a need to create that first and then the pyramid above it?
Right. Well, if you read the Emerald Tablets, again, I got to go back to these tablets. See, Thoth talks about there was a lot of underground stuff going on deep beneath the earth. And in Sumerian tablets, they also have these subterranean cities. Matter of fact, Enki's had his own personal city underground. Okay, so this is an ancient text that goes back 6,000 to 8,000 years, and it's probably a copy of even more ancient texts. So we know that for thousands of years, there have been underground cities. If you look in Turkey, I've been to Turkey to Derinkuyu. There's not just one underground city there that can hold 30,000 people, which I was in and took videos in. It interconnects. When you go to the deepest level, underground tunnels connect to hundreds of underground cities that are built out there. So this underground world, this underworld, is massive and well known in ancient times. And the fact that they built that just means they were keeping up with the same understanding of engineering. And Thoth talks about having a couple things down there. One was the halls of Amenti, which was this place where he would have rejuvenation chambers, according to him, that he would put bodies in there. Not only him, but these other 7 lords would use these underground chambers. They would put bodies in these gigantic diorite and crystal granite boxes and seal them. And then there was some way, something was going on energetically that would rejuvenate these bodies. And while a body would rejuvenate for about 100 years, they would send their consciousness into another body. They say they would walk amongst men, but unlike a man. So in other words, you couldn't even tell it was them, right? In some kind of weird way. It's just wild. And they would do this over and over again. So in one way, definitely a way to utilize this rejuvenation chamber technology. Another way, of course, I think that Giza is a gigantic power generating system. They could be utilizing it for not only generating energy, but also transmitting information, right? Somehow harnessing Earth's energy to transmit information around the entire planet. Because Enlil from the Sumerian tablets, he had something called an all-seeing eye. And he had the capability of seeing everything that was going on the planet at any given moment. Could some of this technology be linked to the subterranean stuff going on here in Egypt and many other places around the world? We don't know. We can only hypothesize. But it seems like this underground structure or these underground structures had multi-function capabilities. And it's possible even that some of them live down there. What a great place to be secure and safe from mad people and angry people coming to threaten to kill you or harm you, right? Living underground in these underground areas that were vast and humongous. I mean, this one area that you're talking about right now, if I were to fill it with bodies, human bodies, it would hold 64,000 people.
Wow.
That's big.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, listening to the Italian scientists who came out with this, they're so sure. And a lot of other scientists are coming out. This is like a story which no one can debunk right now because they're going to have the peer review. But people are like, oh my gosh, this is big, big, big news. It has phenomenal implications, gigantic implications. So there was a scientist who came out saying that this is just to play devil's advocate. And I want to challenge you. He said, okay, look, the pyramids are 4,500 years old, but these Italian scientists coming out, they claim the pyramids could be 38,000 years old. This scientist is saying that actually at that time, people, there were no cities. He said that cities, the oldest cities were 9,000 years old. So what do you say to some people who don't believe, who have PhDs, people who have gone to Harvard, Stanford, and they're saying this just is not possible because you didn't have cities or civilization? The furthest we go back is 9,000 years. What do you say to these people? And what's the evidence you can show them that can kind of counteract that argument?
Absolutely. Great question. You have to start realizing that history's timeline keeps getting pushed back. So every time we think we know everything, we know nothing. First, the earth was 6,000 years old, right? And that was because why do Christianity believe the earth is 6,000 years old? Not because it's in the Bible, because it's actually not. They believe it because the oldest Sumerian tablets, which a lot of the information from the biblical text is derived from that. And that's 6,000-year-old text. So if that's the case, the earth must be 6,000 years old because that's the moment of creation. So these hypotheses and these ideas and concepts have to change over time. Now we know that, well, dinosaurs prove that the earth ain't 6,000 years old because we can date the DNA inside these dinosaur bones, and we now know that the earth is much older. We push back the timeline 9,000 years. We find more ancient cultures and civilizations. We found Dwarka off the coast of the Indian Ocean. All of a sudden now, wow, time's going back. Now we find Göbekli Tepe and Karahan Tepe, which I was just there in September. at the dig sites. I was live on the archaeological sites just a few months ago. And they just now found about another 40 sites to dig in that same area, all linked to Gobekli and Karahan Tepe. All these ancient sites completely covered, but not covered with soil from there, covered with soil from hundreds of miles away. So somebody purposefully buried this area with soil from somewhere else, peer-reviewed science. So what is going on here? So we know that if somebody had the technology to bury civilizations, there's something even beyond that. The further you go back in time, you begin to realize these cultures all talk about this cycle of catastrophes that have happened here via either war or geological. And some scientists have come out and talked about the fact that they believe we've been through several pole shifts. And Albert Einstein was one of them, that we've gone through at least 4 pole shifts on Earth. The proof of this, look at Antarctica. Antarctica is a continent that shifted into the location it's in at an extremely rapid pace. And how do we know this? The animals there, when they discover the animals now from all the melting ice, they take them and they do an autopsy. They have undigested food in their stomachs. There's an entire civilization underneath that ice just waiting to be uncovered. The pyramids that are coming up out of the ice now that's melting, the tips of the pyramids are coming out. There's an entire advanced civilization there. And to prove that, there is a research station there with governments there from all over the world in a no-war zone. And they are researching something in an opening about 30 meters wide. And the only research team that's there that's not a government is the Rockefeller Foundation, who has a research base there as well. So you're saying that the stuff under this ice is only 9, 10, 15, that stuff is thousands of years old. There's no way that they can say for sure if a PhD or a doctor in archaeology or ancient civilizations or geology comes out and says, this is the oldest history, and they make it a hard claim statement as if it's a fact that's been proven, then they're lying and they're fabricating and they're just going with the status quo for whatever agenda, maybe to keep their funding. The fact is no one can make that statement because there's too much proof. And they found a hammer that's dated several 100 million years. They found a vase that's dated several 100 million years. They found something like a spark plug inside of a geode that's close to 500 million years old. Nobody has the answer on the age of this humanity and civilizations on this planet. If they make a hard statement, then they're lying.
So it seems that we're in a matrix, okay? So I got a degree in psychology and criminology, and, a lot of people, for me, I don't care about that.
Yeah.
But my mom said, get that degree just to kind of talk to people in the matrix. So Joe Rogan's show, you've got Graham Hancock, you've got another archaeologist, and they have this debate. They clash heads. And at the end of the debate, it's about 3 hours. The archaeologist kind of, is like kind of proud of himself. But then they had another podcast, and basically Joe Rogan was talking about how this archaeologist was kind of fabricating and lying. And he brought up a whole load of proof, right? So there's this notion, people like Zahi Hawass and all of these people, they come in with a kind of arrogance, right? And it's being challenged right now by these scientists. When do you feel that these archaeologists who have been the gatekeepers for so long on Egypt, that the pyramids are 4,500 years old, when do you think some of them, because I know there are some good archaeologists who truly believe that as well, when do you think, and what do you think it's going to take for them to kind of turn around and be on the side of truth and finding out what's really going on? What are these structures? What do you think it's going to take? And when do you think that's going to happen? And do you feel that there are still some good archaeologists who are still in the matrix?
Yeah, I believe there's some good archaeologists out there that are still in the matrix. There are people that are going by the mainstream information, and not because they're that it's not that they are trying to portray fake news or go down a particular narrative. In their mind, they truly believe that they're on the right path. Or just NPCs, non-player characters that they're running on programming code. They haven't been taught to think outside the box. One thing about education, which is why I'm not a huge fan of being educated, and because it takes away your understanding, your creativity, your ability to think outside of the box, and all these things. It works good in certain areas of life, but in certain areas like dealing with the intricacies of ancient texts and civilizations, you really have to be able to take that box and open it up and jump out of the box so that you can explore new ideas. If you don't, you'll be stuck on the same dogma. We came from a single cell organism, an amoeba, and then that amoeba turned into a whale, and then the whale walked up on land, and then it turned into a monkey. I mean, come on. Stop it. We have to, we got to get away from this stuff. We got to start realizing that you have to stretch the mind to come up with new connected dots to make things work. The way that it's set up now, things just don't work. The mainstream doesn't connect any dots. They have non-congruent lines of civilizations and hominids that can't be connected in any way, shape, or form. But when you go to our version, right? You go to our version, the alternative version, all of a sudden the dots start connecting like crazy. So at some point, we have to say that all these degrees and all these big time colleges and schools, all they've done is taught you how to be a dogma reporter, a regurgitator of information that's not of any value whatsoever, versus really becoming a true researcher and pushing the narrative and asking real questions. It doesn't mean that we're always right, because we're wrong too sometimes, but we're not afraid. We're not afraid to lose funding. We're not afraid to get fired. We're not afraid to be ostracized by the scientific community, because guess what? We're all self-made and we don't give a damn. For this to happen in mainstream, though, these guys that have been there for so long covering up the truth, unfortunately, they have to retire or pass away. And people like myself and others need to move up into those positions. So by that method, we do need to be able to get new people in that field, but they need to become professors that teach the truth. And then from there, convince the people giving the donations to the schools and the grants that this is better for the world than what you've been doing before. And somehow then those people who come in to get taught the proper way, now they become the ones discovering and researching, like Biondi and these others, that can release this information to the world, and it can be accepted with open arms.
And I definitely see those scientists who are coming out with this discovery as like Indiana Jones. I'm like, as soon as the story broke, I'm like, this is Indiana Jones. We got to go and find the Raiders of the Lost Ark. I'm like, this is huge news. And me going to Egypt, you've gone to Egypt. A lot of people who go to Egypt, they talk about a spiritual awakening, just seeing the pyramids for the first time. And a lot of people who are starting to wake up out of the matrix, they have an affinity to Egypt. What makes Egypt so special in terms of like, there's a missing gap right now. When you look at modern day civilization in the matrix, the buildings don't inspire people. Even the tallest building in Dubai, it's cool, but it's not as fascinating as something thousands of years ago. So what is this missing gap? Did they have a different mind, a different level of consciousness? How come they were so advanced thousands of years ago, yet today all of the houses look the same?
I know. It's crazy. The further you go back in time, the more mesmerizing and mind-boggling the skill level, the engineering level is, right? A lot of these things have been through multiple earthquakes and they're still there. They're not dilapidated, falling down or anything. Versus today, you have a minor earthquake in a major city and everything falls apart. So we have seriously fallen, especially when you look just around the area surrounding the pyramids and you look at the houses and these hand-built mud brick, multi-level apartments that are built with no building codes, leaning on each other and collapsing and falling apart on a daily basis, some with no windows and no doors. And you go, these people said they built this? Something's missing. There's a missing gap in knowledge and wisdom and understanding that we just can't put our finger on. But there is an area in text. When you go into Sumerian text, there seems to have been this pyramid war. They call it a pyramid war. There had been two. The second one was so great, it was a war that utilized weapons that I can only describe as nuclear. Now, the word nuclear doesn't exist in the text. But when I tell you why I'm using the word nuclear or radioactive, is because let's look at the description of what happened with this war. You have Mohenjo-Daro in the Indus Valley. This is one of the locations where the war broke out in a crazy way. You have the buildings still there. The bricks have turned into glass. The sand in the area turned into glass. The people's bodies are still laying in the street today in 2025, some even holding hands. When you take a Geiger counter and you check out the background level radiation, the buildings, the structures, and the dead bodies are higher than background level radiation still today. And the only way to get vitrification like that on bones and sand and brick is 3,000 plus degree temperature. That's one, okay? So we're talking about one location where the war struck a nuclear, in my opinion, a nuclear weapon or a weapon similar to a nuclear weapon. In the Mahabharata, they talk about releasing these weapons called the Brahmahanda Astra that can destroy any man on 3 worlds. They're talking about the side effects of this is your hair falling out, your nails falling off, your eyes bleeding. Sounds like radiation sickness.
So are you saying that they created technology so powerful that actually there was a war that they used against each other, and there was a catastrophic event that kind of wiped out everything except the pyramids, and that's the reason why all of the technology was lost? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. Enki goes to his father after they released the WMD, the weapon of mass destruction. Sound familiar? That were hidden in a mountain, Dune. Remember, he had the family nukes hidden in a mountain in Dune 2, I believe it was?
Right.
Okay. We'll get the nukes out of the mountain in Dune 2 in the movie.
They tell you in the movies.
Yeah, they got that from the ancient text. They got that from the Sumerian tablets. Like literally, they took it from the tablets and put it in a movie. And he went to get the forbidden nukes out of the mountain, the weapons of mass destruction, they call them. And one of the brothers unleashed them on the people. And Enki went to his father and said, the black-faced people are dying. The animals are dying. They're bleeding. Their hair is falling out. Again, sounds like radiation sickness. And he said to his father, can you stop the evil wind? And his father said, I cannot stop the evil wind. He's talking about the fallout. He says, get in your skyship and forebode. That means get in your ship and get the hell out of here. We can't stop this. That's crazy. So that's in ancient text. And again, but it begins to line up. Go to the pyramid of Djoser in Egypt. You'll see that it looks like it had been hit with some type of weapon that had blown out most of the casing stones. And then when you look at that blown out area, those stones are charred black, and you can see the debris was strewn out over the Sahara Desert. And when you pick up, in my documentary, you see me picking up this charred rock that used to be part of a pyramid, completely charred and burnt to a crisp. Something blew up in that area. Then take your hand in the sands of Giza and keep digging. You'll pull up balls of glass. The ancient Egyptians used to turn them into scarabs in the honor of the gods. It was the war of the gods. Those scarab beetles made out of glass is because the sand turned to glass because of the weapons of the gods. What were those weapons that can turn sand into glass? That's 3,000 degree temperature. Bow and arrows can't do that. Cannons can't do that. So something else happened back then that created this war, in my opinion, that destroyed a lot of stuff. And then these people, in some way, they just left or disappeared.
So these scientists from Italy, University of Pisa, coming out saying that there is a vast underground city under the pyramid of Khafre, and they've used this radar technology to kind of see this. They're so sure about it, sending shockwaves all throughout the world. Big news, breaking news. Okay, now they're saying that there is a halls of Amenti. To people who don't know about this term, what are the halls of Amenti? What are the Hall of Records? You know what Edgar Casey talked of when he did this. He's a psychic medium who kind of, went into these trances and said, okay, this was before the internet. He talked about a Hall of Records. So it keeps coming up. And now these scientists are saying it. You've been saying it. So what are the halls of Amenti? What is the significance of the halls of Amenti, and why are they buried deep underground? Were they meant to be kind of dug up, or were they meant to be kept underground?
They're meant to be kept underground. The halls of Amenti is a sacred location where these beings had these rejuvenation chambers. I take people to see one of the halls of Amenti when they come on my Egypt tour. This year in October, I'm going to take people to an underground area, and I'm going to show them rejuvenation chambers that they'll be able to touch. In some cases, if we can't pay the priest off, the guard off, we can get inside it sometimes. But these are super megalithic diorite and crystal boxes that weigh in sometimes as much as 1,500 tons that are deep underground in these little halls and alcoves supported by columns. And Thoth talks about one that was underneath the Giza Plateau that he would utilize for 2 reasons. One is to rejuvenate bodies. And the second one was to go through portal technology. So in some way, this power generation that seems to have been working throughout this underground system may be the power generating system for the portal technology. He claims he'd be able to go through these portals and appear in other parts of the planet and even in other places and other planets. Also, there's the ancient Sumerian tablets that talk about a similar thing, which is why Enki, who's his father, also had halls of Amenti. And they even have Sumerian cylinder scrolls in the British Museum that show Enki walking through a Stargate portal. They had something called a Du-Ran key in Sumerian. And in this text, they talk about it was called a bond heaven earth that would allow them to walk from Earth to their home planet and back again. Now, I'm just telling you that if you're 8,000 years ago, you're worried about food for the day, survival, safety for your family, safety for the village, right? And shelter. Those are the four main things that you're functioning and working on a daily basis. You don't have time to sit down and carve into stone a sci-fi movie about stargates and portals. It just doesn't happen. It just didn't happen. You just don't do that. It doesn't make any sense. So when you see this stuff, you have to say to yourself, wait a minute. Let me listen to the ancient ancestors, because they're trying to leave this information, this record back that they wrote back in time for us today, like a time capsule, to let us know something incredible happened in the ancient past. And what happened was there was an advanced technology, an advanced civilization, and some beings, and I do mean beings that look like you and I, engaged mankind in some way that really broke accord with our evolutionary development as a species. They gave us advanced technology, advanced understanding, advanced wisdom, and under their tutelage, we began to build more advanced civilizations.
One of my mentors, Anthony T. Browder, on ancient knowledge, he wrote a book called The Nile Valley Contributions to Civilization, and he's phenomenal. Shout out to Dr. Phil Valentine as well. But Anthony T. Browder, he does these tours in Washington, D.C., where he kind of shows the similarities between the Washington Monument and the obelisks in ancient Egypt. You also have, obelisks, if you don't know, they're these giant towers for people in the audience. And you also have them in Ethiopia. So it seems that the US is the world's greatest superpower right now, but there's a big similarity between the US and ancient Egypt. What are the similarities between like the US and how the cities are laid out and all of the technology and wisdom in ancient Egypt, even the architecture?
Yeah. Well, in the Washington, D.C., for example, is a great example of ancient culture, ancient wisdom and knowledge in construction techniques, building techniques that comes through ancient Mesopotamia and also through ancient Kemet before it was even called Egypt, and of course then dynastic Egypt. And you see that they have a lot of Egyptian motif and style, along with the Greek style, which came a lot later into Egypt after it was conquered by the Greeks. But they have a lot of that style in a lot of the construction techniques and even the layout of the city of Washington, D.C. They did two things. They laid it out just like an ancient city would be, exactly and precisely as it would have been in Mesopotamia and in ancient Egypt. The second thing is, of course, they put the big obelisk there, which is a huge representation of power and also energy, because those obelisks in ancient times they were made out of diorite, crystal diorite, and crystal granite, depending on which one. But they absorbed the ambient electricity in the atmosphere that was being generated from the Great Pyramid, and it harnessed that energy. And if you were nearby, you can capture the energy on a jet, and the jet would then transfer it to a cable, which can transfer it to the device that you were trying to power. So they were a symbol of power and also energy. And then you look at the layout of the city and the alignment in Washington, and you discover when you look at a layout of the city on Mars called Sidonia, that there are perfect alignments with Washington and Sidonia. Even where the obelisk is located, there's an anomaly on Sidonia. When you take the map of Sidonia and scale it down and lay it over Washington, D.C., you find these incredible correlations there. It's mind-boggling. So they knew about Sidonia on Mars long before we sent a mission to Mars to see and copy and take an image of Sidonia from space. Something is going on. There's some significant ancient wisdom there. Why Mars? In the Sumerian tablets and the ancient Egyptian text, they talk about Mars and they talk about people living on Mars. In the tablets, they call them the Igigi. They were the working class beings that were helping to dig out the rivers, and they also dug out the Euphrates and the Tigris River to help with irrigation. they were doing the same work according to the text on Mars as well, which is why we're going to find incredible anomalies on Mars, because I believe there was a concurrent running civilization. And all this, including the layout, the structure, the style, can be found. Now, if you go to the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C., when you walk inside, what do you see on the door? A huge representation of Thoth, the Atlantean priest king from ancient Kemet, etched into the door at the Library of Congress.
They know something that the masses don't know, right?
You can't walk into the Library of Congress without looking at him. He's right there. All right, so they know everything. They have the knowledge and the wisdom. They've kept it for many generations. Secreted knowledge on the next level, even interplanetary knowledge, and it's all incorporated and built within the structures within Washington, D.C., the layout of the city, and of course the obelisk.
When I've been to Egypt, like I said, I stayed with a family. On my travels, I've spoken to other Egyptians, and some of them have said actually it's Africans that built the pyramids. This is what an Egyptian told me. He said it's people in Sudan, that region. They moved, and these are the original Egyptians. And Egypt right now is a Muslim country. So the original pyramids, they had a smooth limestone casing, right? And someone there was telling me that they actually took some of the casing off to build the mosques that you find in Egypt. This is common knowledge. You can research it. So it's amazing that the pyramids would have still looked magnificent if people didn't go in and start playing around and stealing the limestone casing, the smooth casing off the side. What I'm asking you is that you've had so many people, archaeologists throughout time, Howard Carter, English archaeologists, going into King Tut's tomb and all of this. You had people literally stealing mummies out of it, taking them to museums in France, in Germany, all over Europe. You've had so many people rob everything from the pyramids, but they're still standing. Do you feel that they've taken certain things which have given them certain powers? Because there was also a time when they were going into Egypt, a lot of people from the West, and this was also a time of a kind of renaissance in terms of technology. Do you feel that someone has gone into Egypt and taken hidden technology that they can now use to control the whole world?
Oh, for sure. There have been, in my opinion, many accounts of this happening. First account, that one of the biggest accounts in history, well documented, is Nazi Germany. Hitler was on a mission. He was going to ancient sites throughout Egypt, Tibet, Samaria, now modern day Iraq and the surrounding area, region, Turkey. He was sending his troops to these areas to get and gain information and to grab anything and bring back to him that had any account of any ancient technology whatsoever, including the fact that they partitioned New Swabia down in Antarctica, where they claimed to have discovered this race of beings called the Aryan race, which is crazy. But there are pictures and depictions and information and logs showing that that's one government alone that has gone scouring the planet for ancient information. And supposedly they took this knowledge and they built the Hanabu craft, Hanabu 1, 2, 3, and Hanabu 4, these hovering craft that flew utilizing this ferrofluid vortex engine based on the discoveries that they made traveling around the world. Then they had the Vril Society, which was able to also get some information and schematics on building some of these anti-gravity flight devices. And then, of course, you look at the military-industrial complex of America. The first thing that happened when Bush Jr. said, we have to go get these weapons of mass destruction from the Middle East. Well, the first place that they went to, and one of my friends that I went to school with was on that team, they went to the museum. Okay? Right. They went to get their weapon of mass destruction from the museum, and they blew open the doors. They went to the deepest of levels, which had another huge steel door. They blew that door open, and they confiscated everything in sight and left the museum in shambles. That was Saddam Hussein's museum, and he said he had evidence of advanced technology and that we were the most advanced people on the earth at one time in the past, and the first airports were here. And his later on, the Minister of Transportation later on came out and made the same exact statement publicly, that they had the first airports located there in Iraq. So why would we go to a museum to get a weapon of mass destruction? They took out artifacts and information from ancient times. The second place they went was to the ziggurat of Ur, which is a step pyramid. They went inside and they confiscated something that looked like the thing you've seen in the movie Stargate, a gigantic disc with these symbols on it. They put it in the back of a double-wide Hummer SUV thing. They covered it with a tarp, and he said he never saw it again. Okay, so that's just two examples of So America is heavily involved in scouring, looking, and finding evidence of ancient technology and ancient information. In 2014, I went to the Great Pyramid for the very first time. When I got there, my guide was talking to the security guard at the front entrance to go into the open chamber to get to the Grand Gallery. And she looked very puzzled. And I said, "What's going on?" She said, "He just told me that NASA now owns the rights to the interior of the Great Pyramid. And that one day they might close access."
Wow.
What? What? So they are going after this ancient information, and they're spending good money. They're securing deals. They're giving out gag orders, and they're really locking down these ancient sites.
Right, because I know that video with Mr. Beast, Zahi Hawass was saying that certain people are never allowed in this section, but you can come inside, right? And he was kind of showing Mr. Beast around, So it's fascinating that the pyramids, still hold so much awe and excitement all around the world. And it's like, they're so powerful. We're moving in a whole new world right now of AI, artificial intelligence, Elon Musk going to Mars, Jeff Bezos, Blue Origin. There's a race, AI race between China and ChatGPT and DeepSeek and all of these things happening all at once. A lot is happening. Do you feel that they had AI back in ancient Egypt, or do you feel they had just another different kind of form of technology?
They had a database. They had a database in something that was called the Tablet of Destiny. Anyone can look this up. It's called the Tablet of Destiny. And in this Tablet of Destiny, it had all the information. It was like a quantum computer of some sort. And it said that in the ancient Sumerian tablets, whoever had this Tablet of Destiny had control over the galaxy. And it got stolen a few times. And then it got recovered also a few times. So they had something similar to this AI, something that potentially could see future outcomes. So it had this capability of calculating future outcomes. It could transmit information because Alulu used it to transmit information back to the home planet about Earth and the location of gold and resources. It had the ability to control weapons in the text. So this was a multifunctional piece of technology that let them see things on the planet, transmit information, control weapons, and all of this. It was called a Tablet of Destinies, and whoever had it can control the galaxy. Just mind-boggling. So they had something, and they may have had something in their ear or behind the ear that can transmit information through the bone. So if I'm a normal human and I'm talking to you, and you're quote unquote, now in my eyes you're a god because it seems like you know everything, you can think to this device and ask it a question, and this device can send you back an answer through the bone in your ear. You can hear the answer and you can regurgitate it. You can tell somebody how to heal the sick, how to take care of a broken bone, what's the best time to grow crops, where's the best location. I mean, you knew all this information because it's readily available to you instantaneously. We can do that today. A kid from MIT that developed a technology just like this sits on the back of the bone on the ear. You think to it, and it sends your question into Google to get the answer, and then it transmits the answer back to your bone in your ear, and you can then regurgitate the answer looking like you know everything. This is on 60 Minutes, as a matter of fact. So if we have it now, they had it then.
So when you take a look at ancient Egypt, it's so fascinating. I always say ancient Egypt is modern Egypt because nothing has changed. The pyramids are still there. But when you take a look at ancient Egypt, the exquisiteness of it, the magnificence of it, we still can't do it today. A lot of times when I take a look at this modern day world, I say, it's not inspiring. I got to go back thousands of years to be inspired. This shouldn't be like how it is right now, but it is. we're looking at the outside, but we all always know as above, so below, as within, so without. Something must have come from within. If we take it as people built these pyramids, right, which a lot of people agree on, they were human beings. The whole culture of ancient Egypt seems very spiritual. Mm-hmm. How come we've kind of lost that spirituality where we are right now? And what was the spirituality they had back then, thousands of years ago, that allowed them to create these magnificent works of art?
Yeah, we definitely have lost our way spiritually. We've gone into dogma. We've gone into ideology. We've been completely distracted by information that had been rewritten and remixed to control and dominate mankind. We're living in the era of the Book of Eli movie, where they actually found the Bible and now they're going to utilize it on everybody. And they weaponized it, and they've got people really turning them into program codes. Back then, it was literally a true spiritual civilization. There were several spiritual civilizations in the past. One, you had Lemuria. And in ancient Lemuria, and I wrote about this in my book, Epic of Humanity, along with Matthew LaCroix, we actually have one of the only few maps that ever existed of Lemuria in the book. It was a very high spiritual civilization. I just did a podcast with an actual Aboriginal elder, which testified to the fact that Lemuria was a high spiritual civilization. They had achieved such a high level of spirituality combined with technology. I'm talking about hundreds of thousands of years ago. Again, that was lost because everything happens in these yuga cycles. It happened in Australia. They achieved a high level of civilization spiritually and technologically. And it seems to be this system of rise and fall. Going back to Egypt, they had several golden ages where they achieved a high level of technology and spirituality. Their spirituality was truly looking to inner space, understanding that the true power is inside of us. They believed in these principles. We now call them the Hermetic principles, but originally they were called the Kemetic principles. And this principle of as above, so below is one of the biggest ones. And the second one is all is mind. So all is mind and as above, so below have a huge influence and tell us a lot about their spirituality. What they're saying is that the human brain, which is encased in darkness, it can't tell what's on the outside, but it has friends. It's connected to sensory perception systems like touching, smelling, hearing, touching, seeing, so forth and so on, the five senses. It sends out its friends to collect data. The data is collected by its friends and sent back to the brain. The brain then collects that data, sorts it all out, and projects a hologram as to what it believes is going on the outside of itself. And we navigate through this matrix based on a holographic projection. And by that method, though, they understood that everything that exists is contained within. That everything on the outside is an illusion of what our mind is projecting. And because they had that level of spirituality, they understood that we ourselves are directly connected to the Creator, and the Creator is directly connected to us, that we are actually one and the same. We are just a slight different variation, a frequency off of the actual Creator itself. And I say itself because people like to say he, him. I don't believe there's any gender that can be attributed to a creator of a universe. And so they knew and believed that we are part of the Creator walking in the flesh. And they, in the indigenous tribes of the Hopi tribe and Lakota, they say we're living in dream time. And the Aboriginals say we're living in sleepy time. They're saying that we're living inside of an illusion, a holographic illusion, a matrix, that our true self is when we wake up. When we die, we wake up to our higher self, into true reality.
Right. So you have hardcore scientists like Nick Bostrom coming out saying that the world is a simulation. You've got people like Elon Musk saying the world is a simulation. You've got Dr. Tom Campbell, who is saying we're living in an illusion. You've got the Mayans said we're living in an illusion. But this world we're in right now, a lot of people, when you take a look at in the Matrix, people are locked into a 5-sense reality. David Icke was someone who kind of opened my eyes, along my early journey. Great researcher. But what do you feel the ancient Egyptians were interfacing with? Because right now we have reality right now as we know it, right? How do you feel their reality was different, or did they have a kind of whole entire different reality, many different versions of reality, or were they all locked into one version of reality? What's your view on that?
Yeah, definitely. I wrote about that in my book, Fractal Holographic Universe, The Matrix Code Revealed. Actually became #1 in fractal mathematics and quantum theory. So in here, I go into the ancient civilizations as well. And when you look into the ancient people of ancient Egypt, the true ancient Egypt, not most of the late dynastic era, because they were just inheritance. They just had an inheritance of what already existed. A lot of the knowledge had been long lost by the time they came into power. But the further back you go, the more incredible these people were. They had something called the mystery schools, not the Egyptian mystery schools. That's a later name attributed to, but the mystery schools. And these were very spiritual teachings and occult teachings that happened thousands and thousands of years ago. In some cases, in my opinion, hundreds of thousands. But these teachings were handpicked adept initiates. In other words, you couldn't just walk in and say, I want to be a part of this thing. Somebody had to handpick you and bring you in. And in these mystery schools, they taught the most incredible level of occult knowledge, the fact that we are gods walking in the flesh, the fact that the human body does not consist of only 5 senses, that we have telekinesis, psychic abilities, all these other extrasensory perceptions that we're not aware of, that we appear to have been disconnected from. But supposedly a lot of these adept initiates had somehow, they showed some of their gifts were working, some of the additional gifts, navigating Earth's magnetic field. We have magnetite crystals in our brain, and we don't even know how to do that anymore. But we're supposed to be able to, because they tested out in a laboratory. They saw that the magnets were reorienting themselves to the magnetic field in our brains, which means our brains know the magnetic field is there, but somehow we can't perceive it.
Well, it's your logo, the Eye of Ra, right? The pineal gland. So they knew of the seed of the soul, right? The third eye. The seed of the soul, the Eye of Ra.
That's right, the spiritual antenna. Yeah, so all this was taking place, and they were teaching this in these mystery schools, and the information was being passed down from generation to generation by that method to connected and handpicked people, not to the masses, because they felt that if it got to the masses, that they would turn that same knowledge and wisdom into darkness. What happened after these beings left? Those mystery school teachings, those same people, when they began to spread too much of the information and the secrets, it turned into secret societies. All of the secret societies branched off from the mystery school teachings.
Wow. Knights Templar, Skull and Bones.
All of it. Illuminati. I mean, you keep going.
Right. So what we know is that in this modern day world, it's families that control the world. You know, I used to think it was governments, right? But when you dive deep, you realize it's families like the Rockefellers, all of these families who have tremendous wealth. Did they come across the knowledge as well of ancient Egypt?
Oh, yeah. Oh, they believe they're directly related to these people. You know, they believe that's why they have a lot of Egyptian motif around them. They live in buildings that have a lot of Egyptian motif. They believe that they're directly related. Now, when you look at Egypt, it was overthrown 7 times, okay, by 7 different races. Yes, Egypt used to be black, but it also used to be many other races and many other colors as well. Now, when the last overthrown, a lot of these people started migrating out of Egypt up into Europe, okay? And of course, mating along the way. Now you have people like the king and queen of England, some of these royal bloodlines directly related to real pharaohs from the ancient past. And so they believe, matter of fact, one of them made a statement one day that said, it's our right to rule over people.
Right. I was just going to say that. I was going to say the divine right to rule over people. The God-given right.
Exactly. You already know.
Right.
They believe it. They wholeheartedly believe that. Just look at the Rothschilds are worth $700 trillion as a family. Now, Rothschild, for example, in Amun-Ra in the ancient text, there was this pyramid war going on. He was trying to escape. He realized that this battle he wasn't going to win. He decreed kingship and ownership of the finances of the empire to his Ra-Kam, R-A-K-A-M. Kam translate into shields, okay? Now, change that word over time, it becomes the Rothschilds. So this name, the Rothschilds, in my opinion, directly is linked to this ancient culture from ancient times that had this big war, which the remnants of the war have been left behind, evidenced in the sands and the vitrified buildings, that have been given the power to rule and the finances to rule over mankind. And I think they're still doing it till this very day.
Phenomenal. I'm blown away by your knowledge. So psychedelics, there's a big kind of rise in psychedelics. People are interested in it, going to Peru, taking ayahuasca trips, and even celebrities in the Matrix are doing this. In ancient Egypt, they talk about the lotus flower for giving altered states of, consciousness to other people. How deeply were the ancient Kemites, Egyptians immersed in psychedelic experiences, interacting with mushrooms or different plants to kind of give them a whole different outlook on life?
Oh yeah, they were very involved in that. They knew. It's always amazes me how do you find out which plants, you know what I'm saying, and which techniques to use? Like, how do you just wake up? I wonder if I smoke this plant. I mean, it's like,
Right.
who gets this information? It's mind-boggling, right? But I think a lot of it came from the Anunnaki. They had something called the elixir of life. The Anunnaki. Again, these were people who claimed to not have been from Earth. They claimed to have come from heaven to earth. In ancient Egypt, they say they were the netters that at the time of Zep Tepi came down from space and turned mud into a kingdom.
Wow.
And they brought this knowledge. Yeah, and that's in the Egyptian Book of the Dead, which is really called the Egyptian Book of Going Forth by Day. And in this text, they talk about these elixirs, and these elixirs that, and they had one depiction is of what looks like a marijuana leaf. And they would mix it with these other oils and so forth, and they would take it and they would rub it on their joints and they would drink it and everything else, and it would rejuvenate them. But they also have depictions of other forms of psychedelics. And they also had a way to create a psychedelic experience without taking psychedelics. They have something called a Pharaoh's Well. This is located in Dendera. I took people there in 2022. I took 70 people on a tour in 2022 to Egypt, to Dendera, the Temple of Hathor. Now, outside the Temple of Hathor, still on the same grounds, there's a place that goes underground. It's called the Pharaoh's Well. It's always closed, but the groundskeeper said, I'm going to do something special for you today. And he gave us the key and we unlocked it. Now, on the surface at that time, it was about 110 degrees, right? You're in the middle of the Sahara Desert. Now we're descending down a staircase from bright, no cloud daylight and 110 degrees into darkness. And now the temperature is dropping to about 60 degrees. So we're going from 110 to 60. We're going from bright light to complete and total darkness down into cold water. And then you splash this water on your body, right? This underground river in the middle of the Sahara Desert. It's ice cold. And then you have this psychedelic experience, but it can be scientifically explained. It's the movement from bright light to complete darkness instantly, and from hot to extreme cold in a very short period of time. It gives you this out-of-body experience. And then the pharaohs say that they would go down there to get the answers from the gods. And so they were well aware of psychedelic experiences because what it does to the brain, it releases chemicals in the brain that gives you a psychedelic experience.
So Anunnaki, for people who aren't familiar with it, who are just diving deep for the first time, please give a brief summary on this theory of the Anunnaki and how that ties into ancient Egypt and even the modern world.
Yeah, definitely. I could do that. Also, by the way, I forgot to tell you, I have to hop on Alex Jones at 2 p.m.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, sorry. So Anunnaki. So the Anunnaki, also known as the Anunna, right? So the Anunna, depending on Assyrian or Babylonian, Anunna, Anunnaki. Egypt, they call them the Netters. In Australia, they call them. They have a name for Thoth, as the Thothamabi. No matter where you go around the world, the Greeks call them the Pantheon. I mean, wherever you go, you find these people. They, according to the text, not according to Billy Carson, they came from somewhere else. The Mahabharata, the Indian Vedas, the Dogon tribe, they all talk about these people coming from different star systems. They didn't come from only one place. They came from different star systems. In some way, looked like they were creating a breakaway civilization on Earth. They all had a report that where they came from, there were wars, there was fighting. So Earth seems to be one of the destinations that was chosen to create a new breakaway civilization. And they engaged mankind in a way that basically tricked us into becoming their slaves and to do the work for them. We revered them as gods because of their apparent powers, which is just knowledge, advanced knowledge. And because of that, we did revere them and deify them. We became a cargo cult, basically, and we did the work for them. So we were enslaved, not knowing that we were slaves, and that by that method at least. But these beings genetically tinkered with us. They turned us into a worker race after they had a fight amongst themselves for not wanting to do the work anymore. That's in the Epic of Atrahasis. But also they then mated with us, which means that we're genetically compatible, which means that they are our cousins. And in some way, their DNA is still floating around in each and every one of our human bodies till this very day, meaning that we are in some weird way, a small percentage direct descendant of these ancient beings as well.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And please give your best prediction on how everything is going to unfold. How do you see this discovery, a vast underground city? Tell me how it's going to play out within the next 12 months. Give your prediction in terms of what's going to come up from what you feel.
Oh, absolutely. I believe that there'll be a lot more research. I think that other researchers will target their satellites and rig their satellites for the same exact archaeological find. I think it'll be double, triple, maybe quadruple confirmed. I think it's going to change history as we know it. There'll be a lot of fight back against mainstream. Mainstream will try to fight back against this new information to the best of their ability. Eventually, I see this as becoming accepted as widely known, and that this is something new that will be taught over time. I believe that mainstream will try to accept it finally. We'll try to dumb it down to some type of a spiritual thing, maybe some ancient spiritual ritual or whatever. They're going to try to make it seem non-technological or not a great technological feat, but they will have to acknowledge it at some point. But the true researchers of the world and the true archaeologists and researchers that are looking and seeking the truth will continue to bring truth to light. And a lot of people will be convinced and begin to see through the veil and realize that mainstream is just telling a bunch of lies, kind of making them, not as important as they think they are.
One last question, and first and foremost, I want to say thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule.
No problem.
Where can people find you? Where can people find your work? Where can people find your social media links, your website, what you have going on? Please let the audience know, please.
Yeah, please, definitely. I have my new docu-series called Anunnaki Ancient Secrets Revealed. The full season, this production costs $500,000. It's a very expensive production. It could be on Netflix right now. It's on our TV network at Forbidden Knowledge TV. So if you go get the Forbidden Knowledge TV app or go to Forbidden Knowledge with the number 4, forbiddeknowledge.tv, watch Anunnaki Ancient Secrets Revealed. It's packed with knowledge and tons and tons and tons of sources that you can look up so that you can become a researcher. Also, we have a huge tour coming in October to Egypt. This is our 5th tour taking people to Egypt. Every year we take people to Egypt. If you want to go there and go underground, go beneath the pyramids and see some of these amazing things, make sure you go to our website, forbiddenknowledge.com with the number 4. Go to our upcoming tours and register for the Forbidden Tour of Egypt ASAP, because there's only I think 7 spots left now for this upcoming tour. And you can come hang out with me for 2 weeks, and we'll take you all over Egypt, flights throughout Egypt, the Nile cruise, the tour buses, everything's all included, food's included, and it's VIP. We only stay in the Four Seasons or the St. Regis.
Beautiful, beautiful. Once again, I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. One last question I had is that in ancient Egypt, there is this union between the masculine and the feminine. When I take a look at the women in ancient Egypt, they were like queens, had crowns on their head, carried themselves in such a righteous way compared to right now, it's OnlyFans. So in terms of what do you feel women had back then that they don't have right now? And that union between the male and female relationship back in ancient Egypt compared to right now?
The reunion between male and female was super strong back then. The woman supported and provided support, understanding, love, and health for the husband, and the husband revered the woman and put her first in everything. There was this incredible bond and union that happened back then that's just, we are really dearly missing in this current age. This respect for the feminine that happened there. Now, when it came to ruling and ruling over the people, it was predominantly men. However, a famous queen named Hatshepsut actually ended up becoming a pharaoh and ruled over ancient Egypt for quite some time. I think it was about 20 years. And under her kingship, Egypt thrived. Agriculture, arts, technology, advancements in civilization, and even won wars. She had to win wars at certain times. She did that too. So she proved that a woman has the same power and quality to rule over a civilization and could uplift the civilization just as good as a man. So it's pretty incredible that there were, not many, but that was one great account of a female ruling over an ancient civilization that did phenomenal work.
Wonderful. Can I just take a question from the chat? Have you got enough time for a question? One question from the chat?
Yeah.
One quick question. So shout out to everyone in the chat. We're live with the wonderful Billy Carson. Okay, someone is asking, Are there any pure untouched humans on the earth?
Ooh, great question. There could be in some of these very, very remote indigenous islands, probably indigenous islands. There's a couple of islands in the atolls in the South Pacific, Melanesia. There's a few places where there could be some untouched humans on this planet, but there aren't many. And maybe it's in the tens of thousands, but it's very, very, very possible that there could be a very small number of untouched humans on this planet. Originals, actual originals, like the Aboriginals, for example.
Right, right. Once again, I want to thank you so much, brother, for taking time out of your schedule.
Thank you. I appreciate you, man.
Okay, I appreciate you too. Thank you so much, Billy. And
right.
To everyone, go and check out the website, Forbidden Knowledge. Thank you so much. Thank you. And to everyone, Deep Divers, shout out to all of you. We just had the phenomenal Billy Carson. Smash that like button right now, Deep Divers, if you support the real. Everybody should be hitting that like button. Right? We just had a powerful show. Shout out to Billy Carson. Shout out to everybody who's here. Everybody who's here in the chat. Once again, powerful show. Okay, I had to bring someone because this topic, Deep Divers, is so powerful. Ancient Egypt, everything happening right now with this new discovery, vast underground cities. And I want to thank everyone for joining, especially to Billy Carson, who took time out of his schedule. Smash that like button, share this video with someone. This is a short video, an hour and 30 minutes, packed full of tons of information. I'm going to have to rewatch this video. I'm going to have to play it twice back. Let's breathe. Woo! Breathing in that good ass prana, baby. So once again, thank you to Billy Carson for joining. And thank you to everyone who's joined and who has left a super chat. Let me just read Beyond Cycle, Ralph, Smart, and Billy Carson are back. Absolutely. Thank you so much to everyone who hit the super chat, everyone who was on this show. And thank you to Elizabeth as well, Elizabeth Carson. And Deep Divers, I always say question everything because the rabbit hole goes deep. I want to say a thank you to everyone who's been here. I'll be back with another phenomenal guest. Peace. Infinite waters, diving deep once again. Stay well, stay healthy. Peace. Yo! Once again, Deep Divers, smash that like button right now if you support the real. Share the video, subscribe to the channel, and one love, one love, one love. Peace.